Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, but we're going to flip over to some underrated looking players on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of guys here that we want to talk about. I got a lot of questions for Adam, so let's bring him in right now. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Inside the Birds podcast you can get on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds wherever you listen to your podcast. Adam Caplan is with me now. And, the defense has all those questions Vic Fangio discussed yesterday, but everybody's just kind of forgetting about the offensive side of the ball where there's a lot of interesting storylines as well. So let's take a look at some of the underrated players that you're looking at on offense.
Yeah, so, Mike, what it is we're calling them under the radar. This is the subject of our Monday morning show. And what we'd like to do every year at this time is let's talk about players that have a chance to contribute, either no one's talking about or not talking about enough. And that's really the subject of that Monday show. So we're going to give you some names here today off of that list. And the first guy, to be honest with you, when they signed him, I'm like, oh, well, he's just here to compete for the punt kickoff returner job. I didn't think anything of it until, Mike, Nick Sirianni, I don't know what happened. I don't know if Nick had a lot of coffee at the owners' meetings, but he talked like 3 or 4 minutes about Avery Williams. And Avery Williams, to start his career as a cornerback, then he moved to running back with the Falcons. He also was a punt kickoff returner. He had an ACL injury years ago. So he's kind of one of these guys that the Falcons can never quite figure out what he was for them other than a return specialist. But with the Eagles, sure, he'll compete for the punt and kickoff return job, but that's not all. They're listing him as a receiver, not as a running back. But, Mike, Sirianni kind of gave away the answers to the test. He's going to be a gadget player. They're going to find a way to get the ball in his hands on offense. And I probably will go to their mandatory camp next week. I believe the media's going to be able to watch that. It's only one day. They're the only NFL team doing one day for a mandatory camp. But hey, it's better than nothing. So they're going to do that. And Avery Williams really isn't doing anything. He's got a minor injury, so we'll see if he can work next week. But the big part of it, Mike, as we move forward here, is training camp. And that's been the story of their offense and this offseason. They didn't really make any significant moves in terms of getting players from other teams. But, Mike, the backup group is very, very intriguing. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Avery Williams, by the way, probably will be at least the punt and kickoff returner, I would imagine, on this team. You're not going to see Cooper DeJean in that role, especially the way that Vic Fangio talked about him yesterday. It sounded like he was going to play safety, corner, edge, linebacker. He might be everywhere. Bugs Bunny for the defense. We were talking about this morning, about the Eagles' wide receiver depth, and somebody said to me he thought this was the most depth that Nick Sirianni has had since he's been here at wide receiver.
Really?
Do you agree, disagree?
No.
As we look, well, you look back at some of the wide receiving cores they have, they weren't very good.
2020 was abominable. That was actually before Nick got there. Doug Peterson's last year. That we really try not to bring that up. That was 5 years ago. It was we to say we were negative that year would be an understatement. On Inside the Birds, I felt bad, but our job is to tell the truth. And
there was a time where Greg Ward was their most dependable guy.
Exactly. Funny. You know what's funny about that? I remember talking to someone with the Eagles about Greg Ward, and he said, you know what? He's our most mature receiver that we have. I said, I think he's the only guy who's caught a pass for you guys. But anyway,
exactly.
So that was 5 years ago. But now, obviously, it's dominant for Brown and Smith. Dotson's the 3. None of that's in question. But 4, 5, potentially 6. They don't know who it's going to be. Johnny Wilson's not the 4. They don't know who it's going to be. It could be. He was last year, but they don't know that right now. Johnny Wilson's returning. He didn't really do anything. He was there to block. He's got to do more to make the football team, Mike. He's certainly not a lock to make it. We'll see what happens. Terrace Marshall's the guy I want to talk about. I remember talking to the Panthers about him over the years after they drafted him, and they saw something in him, Mike. He's got really good length at 6'2.5". He could run. He's not a slot receiver. I talked about this with you weeks ago. He's not a slot receiver, but can line up inside. But the bottom line is here, he was signed to be a backup on the outside. He was a second rounder in 2021. He's done next to nothing in his career. He's had some minor injuries. He's now on his 4th team. But the Eagles clearly see something with him. They signed him before the draft. They signed him in April. They need someone who could run, who's got size. This guy's really, really intriguing. Like, the guy was a second rounder for a reason. I get it. once you're drafted, Mike, it doesn't really matter what you did in college. It's what you do going forward. But there was a reason why the Panthers took him the second round. He has talent. He's only 25. He turns 26 actually next week. But the bottom line is, Mike, there's talent here, and there's a wonderful opportunity for Terrace Marshall. I know the Eagles don't run a lot of 11 personnel. They don't really do any 10. But if somebody gets hurt, Mike, there's always that question. Dotson's up first, then who's your 3? And that's the question. And Terrace Marshall has a realistic chance to make the team, but the contract would tell you he's got to prove it. 1 year, $1.2 million, only $25,000 fully guaranteed at signing. That's like nothing.
I would ask you this on Dotson. You know, they traded for him last year. People were excited. Hey, he's a first-round pick. He really offered nothing. Do you expect him? Right. Do you expect him, now that he gets a full training camp, to have a bigger role, or is there just no role for a third guy in this offense?
There's really not, Mike. That's the latter is your point. Yes, there's value when they play 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end. But based on what happened, Eagles were a top 3 12 personnel team. That's not what we knew going in. That surprised us. They've never done that under Sirianni. But you change it up when you get Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles felt that asking Hurts to throw the ball 35, probably over 30 times a game was not a good idea. It worked with Barkley and Hurts, and that's coming again here. Though we have yet another play caller in Hurts' career, his 5th as a professional, at least his 10th in his football playing career, as Jalen outlined last spring when Kellen Moore came in here. Mike, it's amazing how time flies. So getting back to Dotson, he'll make about $2.8 million fully guaranteed. He'll be the 3. No, Mike, here's where he's valuable. When you go 11, he's in. If somebody gets hurt, he's in. He's talented. I know that, as we reported at the time, Washington literally would have. I mean, it's funny because my understanding was the Eagles' offer was way better than anything else they got. But the bottom line is, Mike, Washington did not want him. The coaching staff and front office inherited him. They weren't there. It was a Ron Rivera draftee. He kind of blossomed as a rookie. He was never the same. But he did well, Mike. I'll tell you what. You say what you want. I know the numbers aren't great. His Super Bowl game, he did well, and he flashed a little bit late in the season. So to move this forward here, Mike, he'll be fine as their 3. But Terrace Marshall is the guy. I'm really interested to see this kid because there's talent there. They got to get it out of him.
No doubt. And you talked about Terrace Marshall and this wide receiving core. Is there another sneaky guy of this group? You know, Johnny Mitchell was a draft pick last year. Anaya Smith was a draft pick last year. So I think people might know them, but is there somebody else you have your eye on?
You know, you just said Johnny Mitchell, just so you know that. I just
not the tight end from Nebraska, sorry.
Yeah, good one. That's from the Jets, a former first-round pick. Wow, Mike. I got to give you, by the way, so you're going to laugh. When you, was it today's show? Oh, actually, no, tomorrow's show. We're going to talk about this. So you know how you guys called, which player did you get the name wrong?
the Mac McWilliams.
Mac McWilliams, right. So wait till you hear the name that I brought up. I'm not going. Now you might get it because you're a Phillies guy. I'm going to give you a hint, Mike. And when you hear tomorrow's show that drops at 6 a.m., I have an unbelievable Phillies reference for those of you over 40 or 50. You'll like it, Mike. Now I'm not sure if you'll get it. If you get it, you'll laugh because you'll totally remember this guy. I'm not going to give it away what it is, but it's you kind of have it in the last name, and that's all I'm going to say.
I was going to say, is it the lefty Larry McWilliams?
You got it. Damn. Now, okay, all right, since you brought it up, do you remember the way
he had 1 cup of coffee with the Phillies in '89? I remember.
All right, okay, do you know the way that he threw it?
Yeah, he was like a side-winding lefty.
Right.
Like a real, very 80-ish.
Yeah, but here's what the thing was. Yes, everything you said is correct. But it literally, as soon as the catcher threw the ball, he put his foot down and he threw the baseball. Because he literally would not set up. He'd just get the ball and throw it back. And I remember, I don't know if I had a 10-game Phillies plan, but I remember the umpire would come, maybe they'd give him a warning, like stop trying to let the batter get back in the batter's box. Larry McWilliams, he was a tall, lanky lefty that was a sidewinder. No, you got it, man. I knew you would get it, though. I thought you would. I was telling Jeff that. I thought you would get that because you know your Phillies trivia.
In '89, the team was terrible. I'm like 12 years old. He was like 2-10 that year or something. He was terrible. But he spent a lot of. I'm pretty sure it was 89.
I have
Josh,
no idea. I didn't even look it up.
Fact-check me
I
on
used to
that.
call him Larry McBilliams because of his Larry McWilliams.
Well, you know how I remember the most? I used to be a card collector when I was a kid, and I remember the picture of him. He had the Pirates hat, those old Pirates hats that had the rings around them, and like
pillbox,
the pillbox hat.
Good call, Mike. Good man. You got me. You might get it. You were the one because you're great with your Phillies trivia. Nice job.
All right. So, how about a wide receiver?
Got another one.
Oh, he lost 2. He was 2-11. I said 2-10. I was almost.
Wow, how you even got close? Good job. Wow, good job, Josh. I cannot believe you remember that. Man, good job.
Yeah, I was a card collector for a while there.
Yeah, so was I. Yep,
so you got Terrace Marshall, Anais Smith, a wide receiver that could surprise that's on this team.
Yeah, we mentioned Terrace Marshall. By the way, it's not Terrence, it's Terrace, believe it or not. It took me a while to get that right. But this next guy, I'm super intrigued by. Again, I know, folks, they don't use their backup receivers, but it's this guy could be a returner, a kickoff returner. The guy that we're talking about is yet another player. I don't know what the Eagles' fascination with the Niners is, but they love signing their failed third-round picks. So Danny Gray is the guy we're going to talk about. Andrew DiCecco, it's really cool. Andrew actually interviewed him for his Draft Diamond Series in 2023 prior to the draft. He came out of SMU. He played 2 years at Blim Junior College. That's where Lane Johnson went, if you remember, where he was a quarterback. He only played 2 years at SMU. The numbers weren't great, but, man, the tape was – speed was incredible, elite. He was the second fastest receiver at the Combine in 2023. He really never did anything with the Niners. He spent a couple stints on IR, but this dude could fly. He was a Texas State 3A class 100 meters champion, also did a 4x100 relay in high school. The guy could run. I know that Andrew's gotten to know him, and Andrew talked about on today's show, by the way. You got to hear it. This is a great show. Andrew and I broke down their off-season plus, obviously, the Tuesday practice that the media got. But Andrew brought this up, how Danny Gray kind of hinted that he said had he had the opportunity, had he been with them last summer, he thought he could have made the team. So let's see what this guy does, man. Again, it's not so much about how much he contribute. It's about, making the team with his speed. And also, you never know. Look, he could always just sub in if they want to give A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith a break. And you know this guy could flat-out fly. That's the point here.
Well, we'll keep an eye on him. Donnie Gray, mentioned third-round pick from the 49ers. Yeah, it seems like they always grab somebody in the third round that gets released out of there. And it's one of those classic, hey, you don't want him, we'll take him, we think we can get him. All right, let's go to another interesting spot because there was a while here where the Eagles signed multiple tight ends, and the question was, are these guys going to have a big role? Well, Dallas Goedert's back. Now what?
All right, so, Mike, this is what we had said in our reporting back in March. Our feeling was that, because we know they gave Goddard permission to seek a trade, though he wasn't seeking a trade. They were looking to move him. They thought they were going to move him. They didn't in the end, which is great for the Eagles and great for the fans. They can make another Super Bowl run with him. But they, as you mentioned, Mike, you're right. I mean, they kind of went overboard at tight end, right? Calcaterra's back. E.J. Jenkins is back. They brought back Nick Muse, who they signed last year. He was on their practice squad. They brought in Cameron Letu. And then they really overdid it. Even if Goddard was traded, Mike, they would have had 6 tight ends, but we're going to talk about 2 guys here at this tight end position. The first guy is Harrison Bryant, who I've always been a big fan of. Charlie Weiss, the former Patriots offensive coordinator, I know Charlie a little bit, and I remember having dinner with him for SiriusXM at our annual NFL radio dinner at the Super Bowl. And boy, now his son was on the staff where he played, but Harrison Bryant he's a former Mackey Award winner at Florida Atlantic, right? But he's unfortunately been with quarterbacks who weren't very good. And then with Cleveland, David Njoku kind of was their starting tight end. He kind of broke out. So Harrison Bryant moved on. He went to the Raiders. Unfortunately, they added 2 tight ends. So he didn't really do anything. Eagles brought him in on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Almost all of it's fully guaranteed. $780K of the $1.2 is fully guaranteed. It doesn't guarantee you that he'll be on the roster. The money's small, but Mike, he can block. Like, he blocks way better than Grant Calcaterra. He's not the athlete that Calcaterra is. He's more run after the catch, but the guy can play. So he's an interesting player, Mike. He's better. He's more talented than Calcaterra, by the way. Just if we want to be honest here. And the second guy I want to talk about is Kylan Granson, 1 year, $1.75 million, $1 million fully guaranteed at signing, so more than Harrison Bryant got. Now, a couple reasons why we think there are other teams involved. One, two, Mike, he's a better athlete than Harrison Bryant, and Mike, Kylan Granson is not a wide tight end. He's not an inline tight end. He's an F tight end. You don't really line him up in line. You're going to line him off offset, and you'll see that with Calcaterra, by the way. Calcaterra plays at F position, where you'll see him when Goddard's in line, and you'll see Calcaterra line up a little bit to his right and behind him. That's where you'll see Kylan Granson line up. And, Mike, you could use him as sort of a gadgety player. So that's the intriguing part about it. What did Harry Roseman and Nick Sirianni see in Avery Williams and Kylan Granson? And maybe Jason Michael, who's their tight ends coach. I find the whole thing fascinating. I know they don't throw the ball to the tight ends other than Goddard much, but they do play a lot of 12 personnel. Let's just see what happens in training camp. I'm very intrigued by all of this.
Yeah, definitely want to see. You mentioned Calcaterra a couple times. We'll see if either one of those guys can kind of push him off the roster and change the look behind Dallas Goedert. Because we know, Adam, Goddard usually misses 4 games a year, right?
Yeah, you could bake that in. Now Dallas just turned 30, Mike. He's on this revised 1-year deal with a pay reduction. They don't know what the tight end position looks like past this season. So with just about all 7 contracts up, at least I know at least 6 of them are up. So let's see what happens here, Mike. Let's see. And, you saw what Calcaterra and Jack Stoll did years ago when Goddard got hurt. You got the term is like coaches use talking about Jimmy rigging it. You figure out some way it's like 2 guys become 1. Well, you know what? You got to figure out a way to manufacture offense at the tight end position if Goddard gets hurt. Let's see what happens.
All right. Well, obviously next week you mentioned the mandatory and then a little hibernation and for the Eagles, and they'll get ready for training camp, which is about a month and a half away for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we're 92 days to the kickoff for the season. Adam Caplan, everybody here from the Inside the Birds podcast. Check that out on all podcasting platforms. Thanks.